Mark's like, who are you? How do you know my name? What's on?
Way too much coffee.
Nothing wrong with that.
No such thing as way too much coffee.
Just take a seat. Look at all these seats. I'm going to sit up here and just chat to you guys if that's alright.
No, it's not alright.
It's not alright, so I'll just leave and let you just have your coffee. That could be a really interesting Q&A. When
watching somebody drink coffee.
No queues, no A's. You just get to sit down and have a coffee. How you doing, Stephen? I haven't seen you for like 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. Stephen attended the very first Sci-Fi Wales that I ever did, and the very first one that Rob ever did. So
he was the reason why the first one was such a success.
it was.
Okay.
Stephen's not denying that, you know.
Now, do us a favour, folks. Move forward. Come forward. All the way at the back. That's it. Move forward. Let's have a look at you.
It's better that way.
Yes.
Are you going to get people to do aerobics in a minute as well?
I could do.
Star jumps.
You would have been here the first year.
Well, anyone who was here, yes, the first I was here the first year, and we had a nice full hall because we had Robert, Llewellyn, and Hattie, and a nice Red Dwarf panel. And then afterwards, I did a panel, a very short talk on how to speak Guelph.
It was amazing.
Somebody said, "Brilliant, thank you very much." And you said, "It's going to be a panel. Stephen's going to tell you how to speak Guelph," and the room emptied.
Now you're making sure everyone's at the front.
Lock the doors.
I think we had about 3 people left, but you may as well move forward. That's it. Good. Looks a little fuller now. There we are.
I mean, that panel for you, I remember I spoke to you beforehand, and it was something you hadn't tried before, is that correct?
No, I'd never tried that before.
So how did you feel, you know, we didn't get a chance to speak after the panel, but how was it for you, but looking back on it?
Well, it was a lot of fun. I hoped it was funny. Somebody here said it was. Yeah.
Did you learn any Guelph?
Well, yes, I had. You see, I had phrases in Guelph that everyone then repeated back, and then said it all together to make a sentence. And the sentence was something like, "I'd love to have sex with you, but I've got lumps on my bits," or something like that. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, it was fun.
I do still have the audio. If you ever want to know the exact phrase, I shall pass it on to you
I'll
secretly.
remember that. Yeah.
It never aired because Stephen said no. Keep it in case it's
So
something
keep
wants
it
to
secret
resurrect.
in case I want to do it again sometime.
Sounds like the sort of phrase you would never want to get wrong.
Well, no. Especially if, as a Guelph, you're going to have relations with Craig Charles. You want to get it right.
What is this about you getting a little bit carried away on that scene with Craig Charles? Because he's been, you know, on the old DVD, he's been talking about that. You're getting a bit frisky. Maybe.
Well, I don't get carried away. The scene was shot on the back lot at Shepperton Studios at something like 4 in the morning. So it was freezing cold. And the rubber that we were wearing, forgive me for using the word rubber, was, didn't keep you warm in any way. It was bitingly cold. So we were all trying to get through it as quickly as possible to get into the wall. And so as well as having the snog with Craig, I can't remember who it was, it might have been Doug, who took me to one side and said, "Look, just go for it." So I went for it. There we are.
I need to see that episode.
You need to see the episode, yes. It is a classic. I think people who are here will say that it is a classic. People do remember it.
Now I know why.
Yes. I was fortunate. I got a lovely letter from the director afterwards saying, "Thank you for being the upright. And, it's very funny. We love what you do. So you're now going to be honoured by going into the title sequence, which is very rare for anyone else who's not one of the 4 regulars to be in the title sequence." Which was an honour. So that kind of also helps cement that character in the public's mind, I think.
So Mark, how did you come to be involved?
Well, I guess the only reason I ever got involved in Red Dwarf is because, tragically, I resemble Chris Barry. It's a strange day in a man's life when he wakes up grateful that he looks like Chris.
I'm so sorry.
I know, I'm still finding it difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, they needed somebody to play his brother. and probably just skimmed through Spotlight, the actors directory, and went, oh yeah, that poor bugger looks like Chris. Let's get him in. And yeah, that's. I came in and met with the producers, and that was it. Although, funnily enough, I'm supposed to be playing Chris's older brother, which, I mean, I'm not saying anything about Chris's age or anything, but a few have questioned. But then again, holograms, do they really have age, given that they're technically dead?
So would you have become a hologram at an earlier age than he?
This is my theory. When I'm being diplomatic, when Chris is listening, I think.
Like a younger, more handsome sort of age.
Yeah. I never said. If I said that when Chris was here, it would just never speak to me again.
That's why he asked me to say it if you've not heard
Yeah.
Checks him out.
But yeah, no. Otherwise, and it's very strange when you're asked to guest on a show that you've been a fan of your whole life, like I have been. It's kind of odd, you know. I think anyone who guests on that particular show for a couple of weeks feels like the fifth Beatle. Just kind of, around the Fab Four, and it was great for me because I got to be a member of the Rimmer family. This was like being the royal family, Jim royal family. And so yeah, it's a bit of a buzz. Although I made the mistake of Googling the show before I started it to see where they were kind of at, because I hadn't really seen some of the later series, and I just saw that the one that they'd done previously, which I think was Back to Earth, they hadn't done in front of a studio audience, so I thought, okay, they're not doing studio audience stuff anymore. Okay, fine. And then I turned up for the rehearsals, and they started talking about how many seats there were going to be, and how many tickets they'd sold, and I thought, oh my god, I'm going to have to learn my lines. But no, yeah, that was a bit of a shock. But it works a lot better, I think, the show when you've actually got the audience in there. I think that was perhaps one of the things that was lacking from. Some people don't like Back to Earth. It's kind of one of the series that people are a bit sort of marmite about, and I think one of the reasons is that Red Dwarf really needs a live studio audience to get the best out of these talented four actors who really like working with live audiences. It's nothing to do with me being part of it, but the pressure was on because it was the first episode of the new Dave era that I was in. I think we got away with it. Seems to have gone down well because they keep recommissioning it.
I mean, what's it like? I mean, you've both been involved in shows that haven't been done in front of an audience, so the TV studio type thing. Do you prefer having an audience to bounce off and get the energy from?
Well, I will say that having done the Emo Hawk episode in front of a live audience, my scenes in season 10 in Entangled were pre-recorded, not in front of a studio audience, but they showed the film, or what they'd filmed, to the audience to get the laugh track. So it was very odd. It was a very kind of odd day because we were doing funny stuff and going for it and silence. Yeah. And then they'd go, the four guys would go off into one corner and start discussing, is that joke funny? And what can we do?
You don't know if they've got no audience.
Yeah. Is that funny? Can we rewrite it? And you'd spend half the day sitting around a table, and me and all my gear, listening to them go and decide whether it's funny or not.
Now, the other thing about filming is that it's very important that the crew and the other actors who are not on the screen or are not being filmed don't laugh, because it would ruin the take. So not only have you not got an audience, but you've got a room of people who are being told not to laugh. So when you're doing comic material, it's like, oh god, if only somebody could snigger to let me know if this is going well. But you can't. You just you get sacked if you snigger in the background. So it is better to have the audience there, definitely.
When you've got the other actors there who aren't allowed to laugh, are you trying to make them laugh? Is there a lot of that going on?
That would be shocking behaviour. Yes.
Terrible, no, not at all. Because you've got to concentrate and get on with it. I mean, it's not like a show, for example, like Mrs. Brown's Boys, which I think a Christmas episode, and laughing is encouraged. Because if Brendan can make you go, then that's good. It's a moment to keep.
I always
That's
think
a completely different discipline.
The serious acting is the worst for laughing, because you know you're not supposed to be finding this funny. And sometimes I think when there's a really dramatic scene, if something funny happens then, it's really hard to control the giggles setting in. Whereas if you're aiming for a laugh, I find that's less of a problem with people corpsing, as they say in the trade. But yeah, there's definitely, on Red Dwarf, there are definitely moments where each of the actors, knows that you're about to laugh and encourages it. And I think when you do have the live audience and they like that as well, and there'll be elements of that take that they keep in, because there'll be an energy there. I think, frankly, anything that is funny should just stay in the show.
It's like when you mentioned Mrs. Brown's Boys, when you watch that, you can sometimes see that character put a bit of a smirk. They're trying not to laugh, and they really don't want it. But as an audience member, you're looking at that smirk, and you're like, that's amazing, I love it.
Yes, but that doesn't matter, because it makes it extra funny.
It does, it really does, I love it.
In that particular show, it does make it extra funny, yes.
So you two people, you met before, or is this,
I think we did a con together a few weeks ago.
Might have done some event at some point, but not worked together, no.
But you're sort of encountering each other. Is that something I always
You kind of do. If you're involved in something, or have a connection to a show like that, then you sort of do end up crisscrossing.
Yeah, some of the culture. Hippies in space, what's that one called? I'll get it in a minute. But yeah, I think there should be more of it, because I was rewatching Galaxy Quest the other day. I think it's really, it works, and there's a lot of stuff that you could have fun with. Sci-fi tends to take itself quite seriously, which is kind of, it's like it's ashamed of all the glitzy costumes, but I think it should have more fun, more often. And I think that's cue for a Red Dwarf spin-off.
Hell yeah.
Maybe, subtle hint.
You up for that, Stephen? Red Dwarf
The ribbons.
At home with the ribbons.
You might not want to Google that.
Now we're back to Gelf.
We are back to Gelfs.
Yes.
So you've got to be careful when kissing a Gelf, apparently, because they have orifices in different part of their faces or something. I can't remember what the line is. Anyway, never mind. Yeah, forget that.
Every single person in this room, like, we're all thinking about that now. See, the internet searches on Gelf anatomy might spike. Possibly.
Although, I don't know whether I said this last time, but I did start writing a script for season 7, using the Gelf bride again, having her coming after him and capturing Lister and taking him off to consummate their marriage. And it got as far as Ed By, the producer at the time, saying, great, yes, write this. And I got about halfway through, and then I was told that no, Doug's writing it all this year. So it didn't go anywhere. But I know that the idea of the Gelf bride coming back and chasing him did kind of appear in one of the later episodes.
Santa, though.
I played Santa, of course, he's real, so that's a different thing. But
you met him?
Moving on. I've recently just played a real character for the first time, who was a detective inspector in Scotland Yard called Inspector Shelley Symes, who arrested the acid bath murder of John Haig. And it's a series of reconstructions of murders for Netflix and Yesterday Chat. So that was the first time playing a real character, but unfortunately there's nothing. There's no Google, there's no film, there were no photographs, so you have to kind of...
Well, at least you can't get it wrong.
So you can't get it wrong, but you kind of create the character you kind of think that he would be, which gives you a bit more to play with, so you're not regimented into he walks like this or talks like that. So that was actually quite a fascinating process.
Have you any idea when that would be?
Oh, I don't know. It's called Murder Maps is the series. It'll be on Yesterday on Netflix. Funny thing was, I don't know about you, Mark, but it's rare when you're filming that you get so into something that you are kind of just there and you've forgotten that you're acting.
I do that every job.
Every time,
Stephen,
okay,
so I don't know
you
what
say
you're
the lines
talking
and get off quickly. But this, because I was sitting there all day opposite the guy playing Haig, the acid bath murderer, who had these really piercing eyes and was very laid back and calm, with a cigarette and talking about dissolving bodies in acid and things. And it was so intense in this dark little room full of smoke
You ended up arresting him.
that I kind of got quite creeped out by it. And I went home with it, and it wouldn't leave me because it was so.
I must tune in.
Well, it was such a. Because you don't often sit down all day and listen to people discussing quite calmly how they shot this person in the back of their head and it dissolved.
You obviously don't live in Grantham.
No, I don't live in Grantham. No, I don't. This happened in Crawley, of all places. But it was a very odd thing, getting so involved that you couldn't shake it off.
How do you shake it? Or is it just a case of it?
You just
goes
kind of
away
have to go and do something else and completely try and put Coronation Street or something, to kind of try and shake it off. It doesn't, but some things stay with you. It's still kind of up there somewhere because it was so kind of ghoulish.
Well,
Some people can do such awful things to another person anyway.
don't get any ideas.
I'm not going to get any ideas. No,
I
definitely.
don't want to read that as news. Have you ever had a character you've found difficult to shake off?
Well, I mean, I played a character called Peter Warlock, who is was a British composer who was alive in his 30s and took a lot of drugs and had a lot of sex and wrote some beautiful music, but was mostly a hedonist. And I think he was into Satanism as well. And I wasn't aware of it at the time, but people around me were observing very strange behaviour in me for a few weeks after that finished. But that was a very intensive 3 weeks sort of. I was in every scene, and I was. I think anything, and not just in acting, but anything that anybody does that they devote a lot of time and energy into, you get so involved in it. It takes a while to sort of get out of that routine. It's not something exclusive to actors, but it's most obvious maybe because it's about you and the way you are fundamentally. So I've stopped worshipping the devil now, but I still write music, which is odd.
Okay.
I didn't before that.
It is odd because you are trying to put yourself into the persona of somebody else. Try and talk how they talk, think how they think. And if you're in it for such a long time that, it sort of clings to you. You have to try and shake it off. It's an odd thing. You don't get that in, sort of normal life.
Not really, no.
You really don't.
It's a funny business.
It is a funny business.
But for people watching stuff, it's great, and you keep doing what you do and stuff like that. So.
Oh, okay. If you
Thank you very much. Anybody's got any questions for these
Last
guys?
chance.
Last chance. Well, that's last chance. You go down and see them at the desk and get some photos and stuff like that. You've
Yes,
got-
come round and see us.
Couple of things. One, if you ever get to play David Cameron again, please take a photo with an inflatable pig.
Yes, that has been
The
suggested.
self idea with Stalking Dave, I think you should pitch that to them again, except have it so she's been stalking him for 20 years and researching romance films. So she can stalk him, you find him like a scudder on the stove, or playing the function, and he ends up telling him the shades.
You two should have a chat.
Yeah.
And a pot on the stove with Kryten's head in it.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
There you go.
Script meeting at
That'd
4
be
o'clock.
amazing.
If you ever thought of a Red Dwarf spin-off, what would it be?
Oh, it would be about Howard Rimmer, definitely. Howard's Way, I think I'd call it. Or, yeah, Howard's End. I think it is talked about, isn't it? I mean, there are questions being asked about how long these four guys can keep coming up with the goods, and I think they've got bags and bags of time ahead, so the conversation's happening too early. But people are always being asked this question, and only Doug Naylor has the answer. But
It's true.
Especially now with spin-offs and shared universes and all this sort of
yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
So
Yeah, we
it's-
should do a mashup between Red Dwarf and Coronation Street using Kryten.
But see, talking spin-offs, I don't know. I think Red Dwarf works best when you've got the four guys in a ship, an adventure.
Yeah,
That's how it works best. Why would you want to sort of to go off to the home world of the Krytens and have you just
Because, says the boss at Dave,
yes,
it'll earn even more money. We can
yes,
film
but
them both at the same time and please even more people. And you're saying no to a possible work opportunity.
no, not at all. I just
You think it's a great idea?
well, I'm a great believer in quality, not quantity. If you've got a series that works as it is, why change?
Then there's no place for you in showbiz.
There's no place for you to
50
go.
Shades of
No, that's
Filth
quite
has
right.
gone into the
Imagine
development
they have
hell.
a sign now.
Well, go see these two guys at the table. Hopefully you've realised how wonderful and stuff they are.
Thanks for listening.
Have you
Can I ask you a
introduced
quick
your
question before we go?
Yes.
When you're going to audition for something like David Cameron,
Yeah.
do you have to go pre-prepared and get the voice and the look and the kind of, or do you just have to persuade them that you can do it?
I wore a pair of smart trousers.
and burgers?
That was it.
That was it. Yeah. I thought, my ex-wife used to tell me that I looked like him, so I thought, well, I can't really do anything more than be me. So.
Right.
No, I've never been one for those who sort of goes dressed as the part or anything like that. I just feel a bit daft.
Yeah. Although when you go for Santa, you've no idea. Lugging bags of costume around. For a quick, thank you, turn to the left, thank you very much. And off home again. Yeah.
But that's all
Anyway,
right.
thank you everyone, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
It was a pleasure to catch up with you, Stephen. Great
Lovely
to
to
meet
see
you
you,
for the first time,
yes,
Mark. So enjoy the rest
Yes,
of your
sometime.
We shall
Yes, indeed.
indeed.
Thank you.
Enjoy your afternoon. Take care.